Welcome to another episode of TRVC. Today I have as guest Burak Dağlıoğlu, who is president of the Turkey Investment and Finance Office. I've had the pleasure of hearing him speak a couple times about the Turkish ecosystem and foreign direct investments. So I'm very excited to have him on the show today. Welcome, Burak Bey.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
I wanted to just start by getting to know you a little bit. What was your career path leading up to becoming president of the Investment and Finance Office?
I've been with the office since 2010. Roughly in the first 5 years, I was a project director. And in the second 5 years, I was vice president. I was leading our country programs. And then since 2020, I'm leading the organization. Prior to joining the Presidency Investment Office, I was working for a few consultants companies. And my background is economics. I studied Bosphorus University Economics Department. And then I have a master's degree in finance from Madrid EA Business School. That's my career and background in a nutshell.
Could you give a bit of an overview of the Turkey Investment and Finance Office? And then I know also the Finance Office was recently merged. So it'd be great to hear about that, kind of the mission, the key strategies and initiatives.
So our core mission is to enable capital inflows to Turkey. So we promote Turkey as an investment destination, and we provide our facilitation services to the investors, while they are investing in Turkey. We were established back in 2006. And at that time, our full name was Prime Ministry Investment Support and Promotion Agency of Turkey. This gives a kind of, understanding of our core business, promoting and providing support services. Of course, our majority of the job is on the foreign direct investments field. And this is a global work definition. Almost all countries have investment promotion agencies. Actually, this is the National Investment Promotion Agency of the country. Of course, throughout the time, this is the 19th year of the office. The strategy, the mandate was expanded. And with the recent integration with the finance office, we have a broader mandate. So we are covering all kinds of capital inflows. The office, since the beginning, has a global network. We have offices in Asia, in Gulf countries, in Europe, and in the United States. Namely, Japan, Korea, China, Singapore, and Malaysia are our Asian offices, because these are the FDI exporting countries, and they have invested in Turkey in the recent years. We have offices in Gulf countries, in UAE, in Qatar, in Saudi, and they are covering the whole region. They are not just responsible for their countries. We have offices in Germany, Italy, Spain, France, Netherlands, and UK. Again, these are the leading investing countries in Turkey. And lastly, United States. We have a presence in different states of the US, New York, Washington, D.C., Texas currently. We had office in West Coast, but our colleague joined another tech company. So we are looking for some new colleagues. And then we are planning to add some more states because of the size of the economy. So our headquarters is in Ankara. We have a large office in Istanbul as well. So we are meeting with the investor at the capital or, in the business capital of the country when they arrive in the country. So this is an overview of the office, what we do, who we are. We can talk more about our services, etc. But maybe we can focus on the tech aspect.
The startup ecosystem in Turkey has been gaining momentum over the past few years. How does it fit in the global picture of foreign direct investments, the way you look at it?
The global foreign direct investment patterns have changed, especially in the 2010s after the global economic crisis. We have seen in some major or developed economies that, those tech companies were attracting capital flows from other countries or, from their economies. Similarly, in those years, if you remember early 2010s, the number of transactions were limited because the scale of the startups was so small at that time. And in the late 2010s, there were some major exits, there were some larger investment rounds, and etc. And then the public attention was there, to see, those tech companies as a driver of the foreign direct investments. But for us, it was always in the strategy of the office. Throughout time, with the growing amount of the investments, of course, the importance of this ecosystem has grown for us. So since 2015, we have been organizing roadshows for the Turkish tech companies to abroad, to take them to global stages, to meet with their potential investors, to meet with their competitors, to understand what they are doing, to understand what is the new trend, and etc. And to find clients, in some cases, to reach out to customers. So depending on the mission of the delegation. So similarly, since 2015, we have been organizing events for the venture capital funds investor and the private equity fund investors. And then we evolved it into general, financial investor definition. So we included family offices, sovereign wealth funds, and etc. So what are our targets in that aspect? First of all, we are communicating with the LPs to encourage them to invest in the funds that are having a Turkey-related mandate. It can be specifically Turkey-mandated funds, or it can be a broader fund. Secondly, we are reaching out to GPs, in some major capitals like London, Dubai and Singapore are very active cities in terms of the VC fund managers.
So just to be clear on jargon, so LPs are the ones who are investing in the funds.
Limited partners.
The GPs are the general partners, are the ones who are running a fund.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And then in the recent years, definitely Berlin and Paris is also, emerging cities for the fund managers. So we are having our events, reach out activities to invite them to Turkey to invest in Turkey. And the result is very well known to people who are dealing with the industry. In the 2010s, early stage investment amount in the country was hovering around 100 millions in a single year. And in the post-pandemic era, in the last 4 years, the ecosystem attracted $5 billion to early stage investment. This is kind of indicator of how this ecosystem can create large amount of investment attraction. We still continue those activities because we believe that especially in the last 5 years in the post-pandemic era, tech and the supply chain related investments, technology investments are definitely those startups. And the supply chain related investments are especially, export oriented businesses and the related services like, logistics and etc. They are driving the investments in the country. If you look at the data, the breakdown of the, FDI inflows or, breakdown of the M&A transactions and etc. So this is a kind of clear path. So tech and supply chain related investments are on the rise.
Are there any specific kind of areas of technology that you focus on, or is it pretty agnostic?
So we believe Turkey is a very diversified economy. So we have a huge industrial basis. We have very large services industries in all fields. It's 85 million population, more than 1.3 trillion GDP. So you cannot focus or allocate all your resources on a few verticals. So if you look at the statistics, depending on the number of transactions or the volume of the investments, AI, SaaS investments, FinTech, HealthTech, biotechnology, agri-tech, mobility-related industries, these are all leading industries that we have startups and, the investors are showing an interest. So we are trying to cover the whole spectrum, frankly speaking. But of course, some of the industries have grown a lot, so they are creating the scale. Definitely online shopping and the grocery delivery, etc. is there. So it's a very large ecosystem. FinTech, in the recent years, the investment rounds are getting bigger and bigger. So it is definitely getting more public attention, investor attention, and etc. And we believe in the deep tech. So if you follow the investments, especially in the seed and pre-seed level, the number of investments into health tech, life sciences, biotechnology, AI, cybersecurity is growing. These are some priority areas, but we do not exclude any vertical from our agenda.
So we talked about some of the growth, 10x growth over the years and amount of investment. Do you have insight into what's driving the growth, what's making the ecosystem here attractive to investors?
Mm-hmm. Some of them are our observation, but majority of these comments are the investor feedback. And I would like to focus on the common comments. Definitely our talent. This makes the difference. We can name, many other factors, but talent is the key distinctive factor for Turkey, for those successful startups. And, our demographic, it is still relatively young to our surrounding regions, and they are very capable of creating technology. They are very productive in this regards. Of course, this 85 million population is also consuming a lot, the technology, the digital services. We are, in always the top rankings of the social media platforms in terms of subscription, in terms of daily usage, and etc. Sometimes this has some drawbacks, but on the tech ecosystem, I think this is an advantage because this is the feedback from the investors. So definitely demographics, talent, youth of Turkey, it is making the difference. Secondly, the geographic location, because we already mentioned about the scale of the country and the economy, and in our region there is no comparable economy. So this enables startups to create sizable businesses to test their products or services, and then to get funding, and then to expand to the region or to some other international markets. And geography creates such an opportunity as well. In the ecosystem, that there are also some foreign founders. So some neighboring countries or some from different countries, founders are also coming into Turkey to establish their businesses. I think this is also related to the geopolitics, because in the surrounding regions there are some conflicts and some crises and etc. So being a stable country, it also provides an environment, an encouraging environment for the startup founders. And maybe lastly, we can talk about the maturing ecosystem and the public policies. Because we all know that throughout time, the public decision makers also made some very encouraging policies, incentive programs, and etc. Like, we have very generous programs for the Technopark concept or, R&D center type of.
It would be great to hear more specifically about that, because
we have a dedicated concept for, a technology development zone. And companies, this is a kind of plug-and-play center type of, operation. So startups or, companies can go there for their R&D and innovation activities, or they can, get a R&D license, stating that in this part of my office we are doing R&D and related activities. In both cases, you get tax breaks. There's no corporate income tax. There is no individual income tax. So I think this is quite encouraging. Secondly, through our National Scientific Council's grant programs, we grant lots of cash to specific programs. They, announce their call programs. And on top of those tax advantages, we are also providing grants. And throughout time, thanks to the other regulators like, the capital markets and etc., the availability of the funding increased in the country. Many companies are running programs for incubation centers, accelerator programs, and etc. So all the stakeholders are in coordination, and it contributed to a maturing ecosystem throughout time. So when we, compare Turkey, like, back in 2010s and now, we have a map, like, number of accelerators, number of investors, number of startup programs, number of events, and etc. It's a very full, very crowded picture now. But a decade ago, it was almost an empty picture. So I think this also contributed a lot to the growth of the ecosystem.
Kind of on the flip side of that, what do you see are some of the biggest challenges in the next 5 years to come, and what are kind of some of the goals that you see within reach?
Mm-hmm. Challenges are not unique to Turkey. In most of the cases, we speak to the investors, founders, and the relevant stakeholders a lot. I mean, it is widely discussed that we need more investments, especially after Series A. Mm-hmm. So on the pre-seed level, on the seed level, it's a very active environment. Thanks to the, for example, BIGG program. BIGG is a program dedicated for pre-seed and seed type of investments. And in the recent years, the growth on the deep tech actually comes from this BIGG program. It's a state-backed program. And the fund managers established according to our local capital market rules. They are very active. They are raising funds, especially from the local resources. But the scale is a challenge. So they can easily deploy 1 million, 5 million, 10 or 15 million. But after that level, we always need international investors as well. So this is a challenge of the ecosystem that we see. And this challenge also brings us a kind of responsibility. And, we have a goal there. We are inviting larger scale funds to understand Turkish ecosystem better. And if you have seen, in the recent quarters, there are a few, sizable transactions, in the later stages. But it has to be more. That's not enough for a country like Turkey. So we are focusing more and more bringing international fund managers for the later stages. Secondly, I think this is a global issue as well, the exits, because for the fund managers, investing is one part of the story, but exit is definitely a big expectation. It depends on the global conditions as well. When the major central banks change their monetary policies, it affects the availability of the funding, and it creates a kind of challenging environment for many nations. And in Turkey, generally, in this industry is located in the Central and Eastern Europe. According to, some companies or global indexes or the programs, they are considering Turkey as a part of the MENA. When we look at our broader region, this challenge is valid for all the nations. So it's not just for Turkey, but how to focus on this challenge and what is our goal. Again, we are taking our startups to those global stages. There are some famous events in the region. For example, we have been organizing participation to HealthTech, Web Summit, London Tech Week, the Next Web in Amsterdam, Slash. We are very active, in MENA as well. Especially in Saudi, Qatar, and UAE, there are very big events for the startups and the investors. Leap, Web Summit Doha, or the other events, Gulf Food Program, or the Arab Health, and etc. These were conventional events, and then they all turned into a tech-related event. So because of that reason, I cannot classify them only a tech event, but they all have a tech perspective or the Expand North Star, and etc. Anyway, we are taking our startups to there and the fund managers as well, because they need to present their portfolio. and we are creating an opportunity for them to do, next level of the growth. Recently, London is definitely a large basis for that. Recently, we started a kind of series of events with our ambassador. So ambassador was volunteered to host luncheon working events specifically for the fund managers. We invite in each and every event 3 fund managers from Turkey. They engage with our invited fund managers to introduce their strategy, their portfolio, and then on private, they continue their discussion about their portfolio companies, which can be suitable to their strategy and etc. Anyway, so there is a challenge for exits, and our target is to solve this challenge for our country. And we follow a number of strategies and tactics to overcome that challenge. So you also mentioned about the goals. I think we have a goal. Actually, this motivation also came from the industry. The typical story is, exiting at the early stages for the founders. I mean, the exit challenge that I've mentioned before is mainly for the fund managers. But for the founders, the typical path was to exit at a level like double-digit valuation or triple-digit valuation. But what we see, it's an opportunity for us to create regional champions. So if we can bring enough funding to our successful startups, which are competitive in their industry, especially in the FinTech or, in SaaS, is it okay to name startups?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. So for example, I'm really proud of the story of Insider. They are getting global. The founders did not exit at an early level, early stage. And then they are growing in when you look at their clients and etc., it's really a global startup now. Or DigiPay, recently they acquired a business in Dubai, so they became a regional actor in the MENA. So when you look at their, revenue breakdown and etc., it's really a global company now. So they are service expert champion maybe. Or recently, I learned from CPay founder that they got a license in South Africa. So they are expanding to South Africa. It is beyond that, those definitions of Central Europe or, the MENA and etc. So creating regional champions, in my opinion, is important with such a perspective. This is also in line with the Turkey's development story, I think. Just consider Turkey back in 2 decades ago. It was always stated like Turkey is a bridge between Asia and Europe. On a bridge, you cannot live. You cannot do business. You don't do any trade. Of course, there are some exceptions, like the bridge in Florence. Yeah, there are some shops, or the bridge on Malabadi bridge in Batman. There was a housing. There is a story behind that. Anyway, but on bridge you don't do anything. But throughout time in the last 2 decades, Turkey managed to be a regional hub in many industries. Look at those traditional manufacturing industries. In all of them, Turkey is an export hub now. Many multinationals are managing the region from Turkey. Their regional management centers are here. Look at the R&D perspective. There are more than 700 international companies having their R&D activities for the region from Turkey, or regional procurement offices, regional logistics centers, and etc. So this has to be reflected on the startup ecosystem as well. Our startups can be regional champions. They are already, and I think they will continue this path. And of course, our vision for the next century of Turkey is to be a global economic hub or global economic powerhouse. It depends on the definition. And this is a kind of maybe a few decades later, but we believe that both, traditional businesses and the tech companies of Turkey can be global actors as well. So current task is to make them regional champions. Let's focus on that. And I think this can be achieved through availability of the funding and the right mentorship, because we have the talent. They know their business very well. They are able to develop any kind of technology. So what's important is to, commercialize it, provide funding, and with the right mentorship, they can grow easily. And I think this is an important goal for us.
I think that's a great framework to think about it, because the typical way one might also think about it, which is okay too, but is sort of number of unicorns. And I think it's maybe you can still look at that as well, but I think it's great to think of creating regional champions, because that's what creates the value, right? The valuation of a company can go up and down, and that's maybe a financial metric, but what's going to create that is if you're...
I agree, especially, this unicorn, of course, it's a kind of, important criteria on many, those reports, benchmarks, indexes, and etc. This is a metric, how many unicorns are there in a country. So I respect that. And we are growing in this regards as well. Even on the foreign direct investment inflows, I always said, okay, data is there. we have attracted, 11 billion, 12 billion, 30. These are good amounts, but, we have to measure the impact. So impact is sometimes, what is the employment generation? Because we have to understand the impact, what is the employment creation? What is the contribution to our exports or, the current account balance? Or is there any technology aspect of it and etc.? So from that perspective, being unicorn is important. But we all know that some of the Turkish tech companies are not named unicorn because of, it is proved after a investment round. So since they haven't made such a round, nobody knows them as a unicorn. But if you make a valuation, they are already unicorns. So there are some hidden unicorns as well.
Sure.
But as you put it very correctly, and because of the nature of some businesses, being unicorn may not be possible because of the scale of the industry, this and that. And we focus, on the value creation. We focus on some different aspects to understand or measure of the importance or, success of those startups. So I agree. Being unicorn is just, one aspect of it.
You mentioned exit, so that's important for investors because that's distribution of capital back. You mentioned further stage investors as possible acquisition candidates. The Turkish stock exchange, Borsa Istanbul, is quite active as well.
So there was some newly created platforms as well, some new markets within the stock exchange to encourage startups to access funding through them. And we, in Turkey throughout time, the capital markets board, I think, is doing a very good job in this regards. In all different levels of the funding requirement, like, from the crowdfunding for the, let's say, venture capital funds or different forms of capital market products, they are very active, and definitely stock exchange is also one of them. It's an important platform for some of the Turkish tech companies to reach funding or to make their IPOs, and I think it will continue.
There's evolving regulation for crowdfunding, as you mentioned. We had one of the crowdfunding platform founders was on the podcast in a previous episode. And
what I see, there is an interest from the large masses. The people are interested in joining in those success stories. So I think this is a good signal as well.
Yeah, retail base. And can you talk a little bit about the Turkish Sovereign Wealth Fund or the Turkish Development Fund? Do they play a role also in helping to develop the ecosystem?
Let's start with the Turkey Wealth Fund. I'm a board member there. So several years ago, we had a series of meetings with the stakeholders of the ecosystem, mainly fund managers, but we had meetings with the rest of the stakeholders as well. And there were some expectations from the sovereign wealth fund because, we all know that in some countries, these structures are available and they are active investors in the tech ecosystem. Actually, we were also planning to invest in the ecosystem, but we were trying to understand the necessity to focus on the right spot. And we developed a strategy, and the strategy was submitted to the board, and the chairman of the board is the president, and we have some other board members. It was all approved. So we have started investing in the funds, venture capital funds, raised specifically for Turkey. And we are also investing in those larger funds, who are investing in the region with some clauses, of course, because, our motivation is to bring more foreign capital. Wealth Fund is acting like anchor investor, or it encourages some other global investors. Secondly, by bringing Turkey Wealth Fund on board to the cap table, we are also trying to bring more and more capital from those larger fund managers or those regional funds, because we always have some clauses to match our investment with some multiplier. So I don't want to go into details, some confidential aspect. So this is our direct program with the fund managers and the ecosystem. Currently, we do not invest directly because there are some advantages and disadvantages. Currently, the strategy is to invest as an LP, limited partner, to the funds of the GPs. And there, the Wealth Fund is also, actively contributing to our roadshows and our events and etc. So this is the soft side, let's say, if we consider the funding, as the core. And through our subsidiaries, because in our portfolio, we have a number of large-scale companies. And through our subsidiaries, we are also creating some environment for the founders. For example, Turkcell, Türk Telekom, Turkcell, those companies are subsidiaries, and they are definitely investing a lot for the digital infrastructure. This is a very important mandate, in my opinion. And they are also, Turkish Airlines, those state-owned banks, and etc. They are also running accelerator programs, incubation programs, and they are also investing in their verticals, like, in travel tech, in FinTech, and etc. So another subsidiary is the Istanbul Financial Center. And in Istanbul Financial Center, we are establishing a Technopark dedicated for FinTech investments and FinTech-related other businesses, because there can be some, cybersecurity companies focusing on FinTech and etc. So this is the strategy through our subsidiaries. And on the development fund side, as you all know, we have a Turkey Development Bank, which is a state-owned typical development bank, and they are running state resources to be allocated directly to the ecosystem, or they are also acting like an LP to the funds, but they are very active on the direct investments. For example, TÜBİTAK BIGG program is run by the development fund, and thanks to actually their activity, the number of transactions have skyrocketed in the last 2 years. So these are the initiatives of the Turkey Wealth Fund and the Development Fund.
For those who don't know, the BIGG is BIGG,
yeah, BIGG,
which was a grant program, and then now they're investing in equity.
This is also a kind of learning curve. As we all know, 10-15 years ago, we were having some grant programs, and later we realized that investing is more, effective, because it has some advantages and disadvantages. It is more important for, I think, the founders to see state-owned resources in their cap table. I mean, when you're an equity partner, I think it brings some additional responsibility as well. So I think it was the right strategy to switch those grant programs to investment programs.
I think one of the great aspects of it is it allows to see the performance over time of the investment, so you get a great feedback loop.
I mean, when you make the grant, then they continues their way. There is no reporting mechanism. There is no, such responsibility. Because when the fund is your shareholder, then you have to report them on a quarterly basis. It brings additional responsibility. It creates a kind of more discipline. And then for the fund manager as well, we observe and we can monitor in a better way. I'm seeing this through Wealth Fund. Those investments through venture capital funds, the reporting is unbelievable. Very transparent structure. So it's our first time to see those details, because we are with my Invest in Turkey hat. We are on the other side of the desk. Now I can understand how those structures work. And instead of grant, investment is also right from such a perspective as well.
You have some great insight into the tech ecosystem. Is there anything in particular that you've noticed about the Turkish tech ecosystem that you think that others don't seem to have discovered yet?
I raised my opinion on the regional champion, perspective. This is sometimes underestimated or sometimes ignored, or majority of the people are not aware of. But I think this is something that we can be proud of. Secondly, those dual hub structures are important in my opinion. Turkey is home to many founders. Their R&D teams are here, product development teams are here. Many back office works are done here. And to become regional or global players, they are establishing their, especially sales office type of structures to some other countries. Like UK, in some continental European countries, or to US, the insider case to Singapore and etc. I think we can focus more on this dual hub structure, because to be global, we have to expand physically as well. So just, sitting in Turkey, it's not enough to be global. So I think this, structure can be appreciated more. And a third aspect could be our diaspora. Just recently, one of our colleagues responsible for the TTF Turkish Technology Fund was in the West Coast to understand, because our fund is actually not dedicated for Turkey. It's Turkey Nexus Investments. Okay. So in the longer run, if there is a Turkish founder in some other country, we can also invest in the funds who are investing in them. So this is a longer term vision. Anyway, they had a mission to the West Coast, so they were very impressed with the diaspora there. All the founders and etc. And they are maintaining very good relations, very tight relations with the ecosystem here as well. I think this is an opportunity to create new startups, to scale them and etc. Of course, it's not just limited to the US, but it was a kind of recent topic that I had recently, and we know that in some other countries we have a very strong diaspora, and proudly these are leading in the high tech area, in the finance, so they are working in the value added area, and they are creating value for the country. So I think this could be another important, let's say, contributor to the ecosystem, because they are bringing many factors. They are also personally investing in the businesses, and I always believe in the mentorship, the guidance. So they are creating huge value added in this regards, because not to waste time, not to waste resources. I think these kind of mentorships are quite important. As a last topic, maybe the alternative markets, because typically we are too much integrated with Europe and US. And for many founders or even for the fund managers, they are sometimes doing this talent arbitrage. I mean, to develop it here and then to, go to the developed markets. But I think there are opportunities, and some of the founders have already, discovered it in other markets.
Sipe, who had gone to South Africa.
Or, in Central Asian countries, we have some, payment platforms very active in those countries. Or, some other tech companies, they are active in those Turkey countries. Or in some other Asian countries, we can see some small footprint of Turkish companies. And, this is important because the global economic footprint is also shifting to the east or, southeast. So I think we have to tap this opportunity as well. I mean, from the tech perspective, of course, those traditional businesses are also trying to go to those newly emerging economies, but I think we can amplify it to the startup ecosystem as well. So, but this can be, for the following years. But there's a big opportunity.
Lots of great points, not just to single out one, but the diaspora point is a good one. I mean, I'm perhaps part of that. I grew up in France. I studied at Stanford in the US and then made my way to Turkey. And I'm not unique. There's a lot of Turks in the US and Europe who have a lot to offer. So.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at Turkey's those success stories, exits in the past, you can see many people who had such an experience came from abroad and then established very successful businesses. Or some of the fund managers are having the similar story. Mm-hmm. So I think this, and in active startups, when they are scaling businesses and etc., there are so many personal stories behind, that how the diaspora contribute to them. So I think we can use it as an asset. I mean, like some other nations are doing. Sure. Some, Asian countries are very active in the tech ecosystem in US. So why not to grow Turkish diaspora in that tech ecosystem?
Sure. Is there any advice or thoughts you'd have for someone looking to invest in the Turkish technology startups and get exposure to the...
Definitely we encourage them to, engage with us.
Okay.
So our colleagues are throughout time developed an extensive, network in the ecosystem. They are, very knowledgeable. So for the especially first comers or newcomers, maybe not the first or second, third, and etc., we can make quick introduction of the ecosystem and then we can link them to relevant people, relevant stakeholders. And we always encourage them to meet with us, and we are trying to reach out to them in their home countries as well through different events and etc. So engaging with us is our advice.
What's the best way they should engage with you? Just not find you on the website, or
it can be through the website because we have a contact page over there. I mean, they can contact us there. They can contact us through LinkedIn because this is a very active platform, especially for the people who are in tech and fund management. So because we are getting lots of messages through there, they can call us, ask for an appointment, or through any kind of a communication channel. We are all open. So secondly, we encourage, depending on the strategy or the structure of the fund or the investor, because we have also angel investors. We have some early stage investors or later stage investors. We encourage them to speak to our fund managers, because when there is a newcomer, we always try to meet them, some fund managers, because they created this, or they contributed a lot to this ecosystem. So they know the whole story. And we are also encouraging them for the co-investments. I mean, this is a very global, wide known thing. Maybe for the especially, early stages to coming to Turkey. Co-investments could be very safe. You can share the risk, this and that, and etc. So we encourage it. And for the later stages, we are encouraging them to look at the companies with a broader view. Because sometimes, of course, the tech investors are always, looking at the global business opportunities. But sometimes we see that there are some communication barriers and etc. We always encourage them to look at the businesses, in depth, because some metrics could be understood differently. They may not be able to understand the value creation of that startup, what kind of a solution they are bringing. So we try to bring them one-on-one, because as we all know how they work, they go through those databases, they make some, desktop research and etc. We try to bring the founder and maybe some board members and the fund managers around the table to have a coffee and etc. I think they can understand the enthusiasm of the founder, how they are having a vision for the future and etc. I think this personal relation is important. We always try to meet and bring them together in some different platforms. So the last topic could be for investors. Thanks to our wealth fund, we also say that come to Turkey. We can be your investor as well. And then it gives them a kind of comfort. So we are also encouraging them to meet with our colleagues, TTF colleagues, at the Wealth Fund as well. So this could be my advice, short.
Last question. What makes you most optimistic about the future or Turkey's innovation ecosystems?
It always starts with the youth for me, frankly speaking. So whenever I visit a technology development zone or Technopark, whenever I meet with students at the university in the graduate level or undergraduate level, whenever I visit a R&D center, innovation center, whenever I visit office of a startup, I'm always impressed with the youth in those organizations. Of course, we have some gray hair founders and etc. But when we look at their teams, it's all young people, very talented and very open for innovation. They have a global thinking. They have a global mindset. I'm always impressed with the youth. So this gives me hope. This gives me, positive attitude or expectation for the future. And this makes me, frankly speaking, optimistic. Secondly, this narrative starts from some negative because globally, nothing is unfortunately improving. It started before the pandemic, but during the pandemic or after the pandemic, it became more visible. Conservative trade policies, active armed conflicts. Unfortunately, there are some humanitarian crises in the region. These are very gloomy picture for the current condition of the world. And, in the foreseeable near future, I don't see any improvement, unfortunately. So we are not being able to solve anything. Those global mechanisms and etc. are not working. So the current stability in the country and the leadership of the country, frankly speaking, gives me some hope. Because our all efforts is to provide peace and stability not within the country but also in a wider region. And this effort is also appreciated a lot by the investors because they are seeing our vision to create a larger, wider market for business because the continuation of the supply chains are important for the all investors. And our attempt to maintain a stable region, I think this is appreciated, and it also gives me hope. So there are still countries, people, individuals, leaders in the business, leaders in the politics. So they are trying to overcome those global challenges. I hope they will be successful. We will be successful, in those attempts. I think this is important for the businesses, for humanity, for all of us. Because whenever I talk about the positive aspect, people are always reminding me the current global challenges. I'm aware of them. I'm not ignoring them. But still, I'm on the positive side of it. So the people who would like to maintain the stability, peace, I think we can be successful.
That's great. VC investors are generally always optimists, so it's great to end on an optimistic note. Thank you so much for taking the time, being on the show. It was really insightful and great to hear about the Turkey Investment and Finance Office and everything that you're doing. Thank you so much again for.
So thanks again for inviting us. We are always happy to share our opinion. I hope this recording will reach out to many people. And if there are some people who are interested to hear more about Turkey's tech ecosystem, especially investors, we would like to welcome you at our offices in Istanbul or in Ankara or in the other countries that we have offices. So we will definitely maintain this relation with you to, in the maybe following years, we can have some update sessions.
That would be wonderful. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.